The Dead Sea has been shrinking at an alarming rate for decades, and to give you an idea of how fast it's been happening, this is a tide mark on the ground, and you can see in the space of 12 months how far the water receded up to here, and then in the space of another year all the way over here. Now, of course, this was a long time ago because that's where the Dead Sea is now, nearly 1 mile away.
Something extraordinary is happening at the Dead Sea that demands our attention as students of biblical prophecy. Where salt once choked all life for millennia, fresh water is rising. And in these waters, fish. Living, breathing fish swimming in pools that appeared seemingly overnight. Scientists are baffled. But for those who study the ancient texts, this moment carries profound significance. Over 2,600 years ago, the prophet Ezekiel recorded a detailed vision of waters flowing into the Dead Sea, transforming it from death to abundant life. Let me walk you through the biblical foundation and show you why prophecy scholars worldwide are taking notice. The Dead Sea faces an environmental catastrophe. Shrinking at nearly 4 feet per year, it has lost over 1/3 of its surface area since 1967. The Jordan River, once its primary source, has been diverted for agriculture and development. Industrial mineral extraction has accelerated the decline. The result? Over 7,000 sinkholes have appeared as underground salt deposits dissolve. Entire sections of coastline have collapsed. Hotels and infrastructure built decades ago now sit miles from the receding shoreline. But Genesis 13:10 reminds us this valley wasn't always desolate. Scripture describes it as well-watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. Before divine judgment fell on Sodom and Gomorrah, this region flourished. The transformation from Eden-like beauty to lifeless salt basin mirrors the biblical narrative of judgment followed by redemption, a pattern we see throughout Scripture. Within the very sinkholes created by the sea's retreat, freshwater springs have begun emerging. Marine biologist Dr. Itai Gavriel from the Hebrew University documented fish populations thriving in these pools, species that couldn't survive in the hypersaline conditions of the main sea. These aren't isolated incidents. Multiple freshwater ecosystems are developing simultaneously across the region. Reeds grow. Microorganisms flourish. Where nothing could live, life multiplies. The scientific explanation involves underground aquifers breaking through fractured bedrock. But the timing and scale have captured the attention of biblical scholars who recognize these developments within a prophetic framework. Let's examine Ezekiel's prophecy in detail. Written during the Babylonian exile around 593 to 571 BC, Ezekiel 47 presents one of Scripture's most vivid restoration prophecies. Verse 1, "Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and behold, water was flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east." The prophet sees water originating from the temple flowing eastward, the exact direction from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea. Verses 3 through 5, the water deepens progressively, ankle deep, knee deep, waist deep, deep enough to swim in. This suggests not a sudden flood, but a gradual, measured increase. Verse 8, "These waters go out toward the eastern region and go down into the Arabah. Then they go toward the sea, being made to flow into the sea, and the waters of the sea become fresh." The Hebrew word Arabah specifically refers to the Jordan Valley where the Dead Sea sits. The prophecy explicitly states these waters will make the sea fresh, exactly what we're beginning to observe in localized areas. Verse 9, "It will come about that every living creature which swarms in every place where the river goes will live. And there will be very many fish, for these waters go there and the others become fresh. so everything will live where the river goes. The emphasis on fish is striking. Ezekiel specifically mentions fish thriving where death once reigned, a detail that seemed impossible until recent discoveries. Verse 12, "By the river on its bank, on one side and on the other, will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither, and their fruit will not fail. They will bear every month because their water flows from the sanctuary, and their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for healing." This describes perpetual fruitfulness sustained by waters flowing from God's presence, a restoration that transcends natural cycles. The prophet Zechariah, writing around 520 to 470 BC, provides additional detail. "In that day, living waters will flow out from Jerusalem, half toward the eastern sea and half toward the western sea. It will be in summer as well as in winter." The eastern sea is the Dead Sea. The western sea is the Mediterranean. Zechariah emphasizes these waters flow continuously, summer as well as winter, indicating supernatural sustenance beyond seasonal rainfall. The Hebrew term living waters, ma'im chayim, denotes fresh, flowing water as opposed to stagnant pools. It's the same term Jesus used in John 7:38. "He who believes in me, as the scripture said, from his innermost being will flow rivers of living water." This connects the physical restoration of the land with spiritual renewal, a theme consistent throughout Hebrew prophecy. Before dismissing these connections as coincidental, consider Ezekiel's prophecy concerning Tyre around 590 BC. Ezekiel predicted, "Many nations would attack Tyre. The city would be broken down and scraped bare. Its stones, timber, and soil would be thrown into the water. It would become a bare rock, a place for spreading nets." Critics called this impossible hyperbole. Tyre was a maritime superpower, its island fortress seemingly impregnable. Yet in 332 BC, 254 years after Ezekiel's prophecy, Alexander the Great besieged Tyre. Unable to reach the island city, he ordered his engineers to build a causeway using the exact materials Ezekiel specified: stones, timber, and soil from the mainland ruins. The causeway remains today, connecting the former island to the mainland exactly as prophesied. If Ezekiel's words about Tyre proved literally accurate across centuries, his vision of the Dead Sea's restoration deserves serious consideration. The prophet Joel adds agricultural detail to this restoration. "In that day, the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and the hills will flow with milk, and all the brooks of Judah will flow with water, and a spring will go out from the house of the Lord to water the valley of Shittim." The valley of Shittim is part of the Jordan Valley near the Dead Sea. Joel envisioned supernatural agricultural abundance throughout the region, a vision that seemed impossible in this salt-poisoned landscape. Yet Israel today produces remarkable agricultural yields despite challenging conditions. Advanced irrigation and desalination technologies have made deserts bloom. The foundation for Joel's vision exists in both spiritual and technological terms. Isaiah prophesied comprehensive ecological restoration. "Then the lame will leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute will shout for joy. For waters will break forth in the wilderness and streams in the Arabah. The scorched land will become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water." Again, the Arabah, the Dead Sea region, features prominently. Isaiah connects physical healing, the lame and mute, with environmental restoration, waters in the wilderness. This suggests the Dead Sea's renewal may accompany broader spiritual and physical restoration. The Apostle John's vision in Revelation provides the prophetic culmination. "Then he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of its street, on either side of the river, was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. This echoes Ezekiel's trees bearing fruit monthly with leaves for healing. John presents the ultimate restoration when God's presence fully returns to earth.
The progression from Ezekiel through Revelation shows consistent themes: waters flowing from God's presence, dead places becoming alive, trees bearing perpetual fruit, and healing for all nations. Scripture establishes a clear pattern: judgment, exile, and restoration. The Dead Sea region experienced this cycle beginning with Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction, Genesis 19, continuing through Israel's exiles, and now potentially entering the restoration phase. Key dates support this pattern. 586 BC, Jerusalem's destruction, temple razed. 538 BC, first return from Babylon. AD 70, second temple destroyed, Jewish diaspora begins. 1948, Israel re-established after 1878 years. 1967, Jerusalem reunified under Jewish control. Present, Dead Sea showing signs of renewed life. The timing suggests we may be witnessing early stages of the prophetic restoration Ezekiel and others described. The freshwater springs appearing in Dead Sea sinkholes have natural explanations: underground aquifers, geological shifts, changing hydrology. But the confluence of factors creating life-supporting conditions precisely when Israel has been reestablished raises profound questions about divine timing. Consider the specifics: freshwater appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, fish populations establishing quickly in hostile environments, plant life taking root in previously sterile conditions, all occurring during Israel's modern restoration period. While naturalistic explanations exist for each element, their coordination suggests design rather than coincidence. Jesus taught his disciples to recognize signs of the times in Matthew 16:3. The apostles understood that biblical prophecy would manifest through observable events in history. Paul wrote in Romans 11:15 that Israel's spiritual restoration would mean life from the dead for the world. As physical life returns to the Dead Sea region, we may be witnessing a harbinger of this greater spiritual awakening. The pattern is consistent across Scripture. God demonstrates his power through creation before manifesting it in redemption. The plagues of Egypt preceded the Exodus. Elijah's miracles prepared for spiritual revival. Jesus' physical healings pointed to eternal spiritual healing. The Dead Sea's transformation from a symbol of divine judgment to a scene of emerging life reflects Scripture's overarching narrative of redemption. What we observe today may represent early movements and prophecies that will find complete fulfillment in God's perfect timing. Whether these developments constitute partial fulfillment, prophetic foreshadowing, or divine signs, they deserve attention from serious students of biblical prophecy. The ancient words are proving themselves reliable guides to contemporary events. The Dead Sea continues its transformation. Fish swim where none could survive. Plants grow where salt once ruled. And those who study the ancient texts recognize the echoes of promises made millennia ago, promises that may be closer to fulfillment than many realize. The story continues to unfold, written simultaneously in the pages of Scripture and across the landscape of the Promised Land.